Hey all, and welcome to another episode of An Open Journal. In this series, we'll be talking about a number of different topics about games and other forms of entertainment, and take a deep dive into the inner workings of their respective lore. But this series isn't just about my takes, as the floor is open to anyone to bring in their own ideas, theories, and opinions as to what we will be talking about. So feel free to drop your discussions in the comments. I'll take the time to read your thoughts and respond to whatever ideas you all may have. Before I go on to introduce today's topic, I just want to say thank you to everyone who enjoyed the last episode about Splatoon's extensive timeline. It was a blast to make that episode, and I love that everyone enjoyed watching it despite some mistakes that were made in the video. But I'll touch on that when we revisit the topic once again as soon as the second half of Splatoon 3's DLC releases later on this year. And with that, we can begin with the overview. For today's episode, I ended up buying Hyrule Historia, an official book that talks about the main timeline in the Zelda series. This book touches on every game in the series, excluding Hyrule Warriors, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. By the time I've started writing the script, Tears of the Kingdom hasn't yet been released, so things on this video will change based on what findings I can gather from the lore in the game. As always, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't played any of the Zelda games mentioned here, I recommend you click off this video and come back until you're all caught up. Later on, once we're all caught up with the timeline, we'll be discussing a theory that most people in the community believe to be true, regarding the possibility of the timeline being in a perpetual loop, with the timeline splitting at certain points, then reconverging into a single linear path. Finally, before we begin this analysis, here's the order in which we'll be looking at the timeline from. Starting off, we're going to go with The Legend of the Goddesses and the Hero. This is where basically the timeline begins, starting with Skyward Sword, the Minish Cap, Four Swords, and Ocarina of Time. But after Ocarina of Time is when things get a little bit complicated, because then we have a split. This split being the heroes defeated and the heroes triumphant. Starting off with the hero's defeat, the decline of Hyrule and the last hero, we start with A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, A Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, The Legend of Zelda 1, and The Legends of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Moving on to the child era things is when we get another split between the child era and the adult era of the heroes triumphant. So starting with the child era, we'll be going over Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and Four Swords Adventures. Then, we move on to the adult era, which begins with the Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. Finally, we'll make it on to the Age of Calamity, which we're not entirely sure where this is in the timeline, but it consists of these three games: Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I will also add the titles of each section on the top left corner of the screen, as well as add chapters to this video so that you don't lose track of where you are as we progress. The title will be right over here. The sources for this episode will be the Hyrule Historia book, the Legend of Zelda official website, and the Legend of Zelda wiki page. With that out of the way, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Oh, and make sure that you got a snack nearby, because this is going to be a long one. But first, this segue to a shameless plug. This episode of An Open Journal is brought to you by PowerPlayPCs. Are you looking to build your own PC but don't know where to start? Well, look no further, as me and my friend have started our own PC building business in the greater Kansas City area. If you're not in the area, we can work with you on figuring out shipping costs. We can work with you on making your next project a reality using any budget. Still can't figure out where to start? Worry not, because we've recently introduced a line of pre-built PCs that can be used as a baseline for your project. Right now, we have pre-built PCs from low and mid ranges, with high-range pre-builts coming soon. If you're interested, we still have our first 3 promotion available, where the first 3 people who start their projects with us will have the building fee completely waived. All you need to do is pay for the cost of the parts. Feel free to check out our website in the description below. And with that, let's go on with the video. Our story begins with the creation of the world. Before time had begun, 3 golden goddesses descended upon the chaos that was Hyrule. Din, the goddess of power, created the earth. Nehru, the goddess of wisdom, bestowed order upon the world. And Furor, the goddess of courage, created life. With their duties fulfilled, the goddesses departed for the heavens. They left behind what is known as the Triforce, an all-powerful artifact consisting of 3 golden triangles that would grant the user their heart's desire. The Triforce was entrusted to the goddess Hylia during this era. But one day, the demon king known as Demise sought to take it and make the world his own. He had raised an army of evil forces against Hyrule. Hylia gathered the surviving humans on an outcrop of earth and sent it up into the sky, beyond a cloud barrier of her own creation. This outcrop would later be known as Skyloft. This is where she hid the Triforce as well. Hylia had rallied the surface tribes of the Gorons, Kikwi, Magma, Perella, and the ancient robots to fight back against the forces of evil led by Demise and sealed them away. Hylia had suffered severe injuries during this battle, and while knowing that the seal placed against Demise wouldn't hold, she created a plan. The Triforce could not be wielded by a god, and so Hylia renounced her divinity and transferred her soul to the body of a mortal who would eventually come of age when Demise returned. At this time, she creates the goddess sword and the spirit called Fi, who would aid her chosen hero. Fi would reveal himself when said hero drew the sword from its pedestal. Thousands of years later, Hylia is reborn as Zelda in Skyloft. On the day of the 25th annual Wing Ceremony, she is taken down to the surface in a tornado created by an individual named Girahim, who attempts to have her revive his master, Demise. Zelda is rescued from his minions by someone named Impa, who Hylia had sent through time to help her mortal self. Impa at this point in the timeline is only referred to as the servant to the goddess Hylia. She is tasked with watching over Demise in the form of what is known as the Imprisoned. Zelda regains her memories as Hylia. Her childhood friend Link is led by Fi to draw the goddess sword, and so is revealed to be Hylia's chosen hero. At the Temple of Time, Zelda and Impa flee from Girahim by going into what is known as the Gate of Time and destroy it behind them. Link seeks out the 3 sacred flames to temper his sword into what we know as the Master Sword, the sword that seals the darkness, which he uses to activate the second Gate of Time back at the sealed temple. He finds Zelda by using the Gate of Time to travel back to the era of Hylia, to a time shortly after Demise had been sealed. Zelda places herself in a 1,000-year slumber in order to sustain the seal. Link returns to the present and gathers the Triforce, and he uses it to destroy Demise. Zelda awakens from her age-long slumber, only to be kidnapped by Girahim, where he takes her to the past, a past in which Demise is still alive, and uses her soul to revive his master. Link eventually beats Demise in battle, and the Demon King is permanently sealed away in the Master Sword. With his last words, Demise vows that an incarnation of his hatred shall ever follow those who share the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero in a cycle without end. Link thrusts the Master Sword into a pedestal in the sealed temple. Fi becomes forever dormant in the sword. Link and Zelda return to the present, but Impa stays in the past, in her own time, to watch over the Master Sword. Zelda and Link resolve to live on the surface and watch over the Triforce. Zelda, Link, and others from Skyloft repopulated the surface world. Their descendants became known as Hylians. During this time, the land was officially named Hyrule. After many years of peace in Hyrule, word spread of the supreme power of the Triforce. War had engulfed the land, heralding the era of chaos. In particular, a group of powerful sorcerers known as the Interlopers had sought dominion over the sacred realm. This was where the Triforce was located. The goddesses sent the Spirit of Light to banish them into the Twilight realm. In order to protect the Triforce, the sage Rauru had built a new Temple of Time at the location of the Sealed Temple, around the pedestal holding the Master Sword, the location of the only entrance into the Sacred Realm. He placed the Triforce in the Temple of Light and sealed off the Sacred Realm with him inside of it in an event called Sealing the Sacred Realm. The Master Sword became the key that joined the Temple of Time to the Temple of Light. It was closed behind the Door of Time. During this era, Zelda's descendants established the Kingdom of Hyrule and became its royal family. The Oka also participated in Hyrule's founding. Many members of the royal family were born with special powers given that they were blood relatives of the goddess Hylia. Princesses born into the royal family were named after Zelda, after the goddess reincarnate. During the Force era, Hyrule was attacked by evil beings. The Minish, known to the Hylians as Picori, descended from the sky to save Hyrule. They brought the Picori blade and the light force to the hero of men. The hero sealed the evil beings in the bound chest and locked it with the Picori blade. To commemorate this event, a Picori festival was held once a year. During this festival, the champion of a sword fighting tournament would earn the right to touch the Picori blade. On the 100th anniversary of the Picori festival, a corrupted, power-seeking Minish named Vati wins the sword fighting tournament. During the award ceremony, Vati breaks the Picori blade and opens the bound chest, hoping to find the light force. This unleashes evil onto Hyrule. He turns Zelda to stone and later kidnaps her when he discovers the light force is within her. He uses the light force to transform into a winged demon. Link, a blacksmith's apprentice and Zelda's friend, is enlisted by King Daltus to help have the Picori blade reforged so it can break the curse on Zelda. He teams up with Ezlo, a Minish sage and Vati's former mentor. Vati had gained his power when he stole the Mage's Cap from Ezlo. With the help of Ezlo and the other Minish, Link reforges the Picori blade and infuses it with the four elements to create the Four Sword. With it in hand, Link defeats Vati, breaking the curse on Zelda. Zelda uses the Mage's Cap to wish Hyrule back to normal. Vati was presumed dead, but it soon reappeared. Having no memory of what had happened of his previous life as a Minish, he declared himself Wind Mage and claimed the Palace of Winds. He brought terror to the land by kidnapping young maidens. A hero appeared carrying the Four Sword. He sealed the demon inside the sword, which was then enshrined in the Four Sword Sanctuary. Generations later, Vati breaks free and kidnaps Zelda, taking her to the Palace of Winds. Link, who had witnessed the kidnapping, draws the Four Sword and splits into 4 different versions of himself. The Links gather 3 keys to Vati's palace from the Great Fairies in the Sea of Trees, Talus Cave, and Death Mountain. The Links defeat Vati in his palace and rescue Princess Zelda. The Wind Mage is once again sealed in the Four Sword, which is returned to its pedestal, and Link regains his original form. Hyrule enters a long period of civil war. During this war, a dying Hylian woman flees to the Kokiri forest and entrusts her baby boy Link to the Great Deku Tree. This boy is raised as a Kokiri. Eventually, the King of Hyrule ends the war and unifies the kingdom. Around this time, Ganondorf is born. This new evil would cause endless destruction across Hyrule over millennia. Ganondorf is a part of a race known as the Gerudo. The game makes it clear that this race consists of primarily women, to whom only one male is born every century. Because of this, the male is by birthright the king of the Gerudo. At this time, Ganondorf swears fealty to the King of Hyrule, but plots to open the Door of Time to obtain the Triforce. To that point, he curses the Great Deku Tree to wrest him from the Kokiri's emerald. With his dying breath, the Great Deku Tree sets Link and the fairy Navi on a quest to stop Ganondorf. Link meets the Zelda of this time, who like Link had premonitions of Ganondorf's plans. The two plot to open the Door of Time and get to the Triforce before Ganondorf. When Link opens the Door of Time and draws the Master Sword, He is sealed within the Chamber of Sages for the next 7 years. He reawakens as the hero of time. Meanwhile, Ganondorf has entered the Sacred Realm, seized the Triforce, and transformed Hyrule into a world of monsters. However, the Triforce had split into 3 pieces, and Ganondorf only retained the Triforce of Power. Link gained the Triforce of Courage, and Zelda gained the Triforce of Wisdom. Ganondorf used his newfound power to take control of Hyrule Castle, and the Sacred Realm was transformed into the Evil Realm due to the evil in his heart. Using the combined power of the Master Sword and the 7 Sages, Link and Zelda seal Ganondorf into the Evil Realm. Ganondorf vows to destroy Link and Zelda's descendants when the seal is one day broken. Zelda uses the Ocarina of Time to return Link back to his own time. Link places the Master Sword back in the pedestal and closes the door of time. Navi, having completed her mission, disappears. This is where things get to be a bit more complicated, as the timeline takes not 1, but 3 separate paths after Ocarina of Time. This is due to the 3 different endings. The first split is between 2 sections, the hero's defeat and the hero's triumphant. In the hero's defeat, Ganondorf defeats the Hero of Time in battle. He takes Link's Triforce of Courage and Zelda's Triforce of Wisdom, thus gaining the power of the complete Triforce. As a last resort, the 7 Sages, led by Zelda, seal Ganondorf and the Triforce within the corrupted Sacred Realm, now known as the Dark World. In The Hero is Triumphant, this portion of the timeline features an additional split between the Child Era and the Adult Era. In the Child Era, after Link is sent back to his own time, he goes off to warn the royal family of Ganondorf's plan, completely avoiding his rise to power and beating him from the start. Link leaves Hyrule on his horse Epona to search for Navi. Years later, Ganondorf is sealed within the Twilight Realm. In the Adult Era, Link has disappeared after being sent in time at the end of Ocarina of Time. In this timeline, Ganondorf is sealed within the void of the corrupted Sacred Realm, along with the Triforce of Power. The Triforce of Wisdom remains in Zelda's possession. However, when Link goes back in time, the Triforce of Courage is left behind, shattered into 8 shards and scattered across Hyrule. Zelda returns the Master Sword to the Temple of Time. Let's start at the hero's defeat. There are 2 different versions detailing this event. Tears of the Kingdom's version differs a bit compared to the one I'm about to tell you about. We'll go over the original first, and then talk about Tears of the Kingdom's version when we get to that section. After a brief period of peace, the doorway to the Sacred Realm is reopened. People fought each other to claim the Triforce, but none who entered the Sacred Realm returned. Instead came forth an army of Ganon's demons. The King of Hyrule commanded the 7 sages of that era to seal the gate to the Sacred Realm. They succeeded, though the knights of Hyrule who defended them were nearly wiped out. Due to the cost of resources and lives in the fight over the Sacred Realm, the Imprisoning War left Hyrule impoverished. The Imprisoning War occurred many years after Ganon defeated the Hero of Time. Following the Imprisoning War, the Era of Light and Dark began. Many years later, the Dark Wizard Aghanim brainwashed all of Hyrule's soldiers and murdered the King of Hyrule, and made 6 of the maidens, descendants of the 7 sages, disappear into the Dark World. He did this in order to break the seal on Ganon. The last remaining victim was Zelda. She used telepathy to call out to Link. Using his dying uncle's sword, Link freed Zelda from her cell in the dungeon of Hyrule Castle and collected 3 pendants of virtue to prove he could draw the Master Sword, which recognized him as the hero. Link fought the wizard Aghanim, but was too late to stop him from using Zelda and the other maidens to break the seal, which opened a portal in the castle. Link traversed Hyrule and the Dark World to rescue the 6 maidens along with Zelda, and together they broke the barrier to Ganon's tower. Link killed Aghanim and Ganon in battle before they could reach Hyrule, and made a wish on the Triforce to restore anyone who died to Ganon's evil. The royal family now possessed the Triforce. Now this is where things get a bit confusing, because we have a bit of a conflict between what comes after A Link to the Past. Hyrule Historia states that Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons take place after A Link to the Past. However, the Legend of Zelda Encyclopedia and even the official website states that Link's Awakening takes place after A Link to the Past. So to make things simple for all of us, I'm going to go in the order in which Hyrule Historia was written, as this book was specifically written to detail the timeline in the exact order. Hyrule Historia dictates that Oracle of Seasons goes first, despite the fact that these games are a bit parallel with each other. Regardless, let's get started. For some background, the characters known as Twin Rova are the witches that raised Ganon, back when he was referred to as Ganondorf the Thief. These witches were plotting ways to perform the ceremony that would resurrect the Demon King. For the ceremony to occur, it was necessary to light the flame of destruction, the flame of sorrow, and the flame of despair derived from the chaos, sorrow, and hopelessness of humanity. They would also need to offer up a sacred sacrifice. In order to obtain the flame of destruction and the flame of sorrow, Twin Rova sent Onox, the General of Darkness, to the land of Holodrum, and Varan, a sorceress of shadows, to the land of Labyrinth. Link, the boy who had saved the land of Hyrule, was guided by the Triforce and sent to the unfamiliar land of Holodrum. After arriving on the new land, the hero lay sprawled out on the ground, unconscious. Just then, a dancer named Din just happened to pass by. The traveling performer affectionately nursed Link back to health. When Link had finally woken up, Din invited him to dance. Suddenly, darkness had engulfed her troupe of performers. Whirlwinds had raged around them, accompanied by the voice of Onox, General of Darkness. Onox was searching for Din, the oracle who safeguarded the 4th seasons. Link issued a bold challenge to the general, but Onox had succeeded in kidnapping the oracle. Din was sealed away. The 4 seasons of the land of Holodrum were thrown into chaos. Wielding the Rod of the Seasons, Link set out in search of the 8 essences of nature. With the aid of the Maku Tree, guardian of Holodrum, Link ousted the power of darkness and set out to tackle Onox's castle, located in the northern reaches of the land. Link had beaten Onox in his true form, the Dark Dragon, and rescued Din, returning the power of the seasons back to the land of Holodrum. Next, Link alighted in the familiar land of Labyrinth. He came to the aid of Impa, who was surrounded by demons. Impa had other troubles, however, finding herself unable to move a boulder with the crest of the royal family on it. Link moved the rock with ease and pressed on, only to encounter a singing Nehru surrounded by animals. Just like before, a darkness surrounded them once again. This time, Varan, the Sorceress of Shadows, appeared within Impa, taking control of Nehru's body. In truth, Nehru was the Oracle of Ages who governed the passage of time in the land of Labyrinth. The Oracle, now possessed by Varan, had vanished. With the Oracle of Ages now lost, the flow of time in the land of Labyrinth fell into chaos, and strange events began to happen all over the land. Varan, using the power of Nehru to manipulate time, traveled back to Labyrinth's past and forced the reigning Queen Ambi to construct a giant tower. As requested by the Guardian of Labyrinth, the Maku Tree, Link shouldered the Harp of Ages and set out in search of the 8 missing essences of time. With the help of the Maku Tree, Link was able to make it to the Black Tower and essentially drive out Varan, who had been possessing the body of Queen Ambi. He defeated Varan's true form and rescued Nehru, returning the flow of time in Labyrinth to its original state. Twin Rova, who had now lurked behind the scenes in Holodrum and Labyrinth, pulling the strings, managed to light the flame of destruction and the flame of sorrow. All that remained was to kidnap Princess Zelda and light the flame of despair, using the princess as a sacred sacrifice. they attempted to resurrect Ganon. After having saved both oracles, Link borrowed their power and threw himself upon the ceremonial altar. He cornered and defeated Twinrova, but the witches had done the unthinkable and sacrificed themselves to bring Ganon back. But because the ceremony was not completed, Ganon returned not as Ganondorf himself, but instead as a demonic beast. Link brought down the rampaging Demon King and rescued Zelda, restoring peace to the lands of Holodrum and Labyrinth. Bidding farewell to all the people he had met in these lands, Link boarded a small ship and set sail for the next land in which he would train. Now at this part, I do want to add that there is actually a third oracle, coincidentally named Furore, who is known to be the Oracle of Secrets. She was supposed to have her own main role in a game called The Legend of Zelda: Mythical Seed of Courage, but because of technical limitations with the Game Boy Color at the time, it had to be scrapped. Instead of wasting her, they did give her a supporting role in the Oracle's games as she helps the player obtain secrets found in both games. With that being said, it kind of leads me on to speculate that Furore's story was to take place in a different region aside from Holodrum and Labyrinth, as the book worded at that last part as Link having to go into another land to train. Well, with that being said, let's move on to Link's Awakening. On a journey back to Hyrule, Link had encountered a big storm in the middle of the sea. His little boat had capsized and he awoke on an island called Koholint. The island existed in the dreams of the Windfish, who was sleeping on an egg atop Mount Tamaranch. Here's a bit of a side note. On his adventure in the dream of the Windfish, Link meets an interesting pair of characters that resemble characters from Ocarina of Time in the Oracle's games. Malon and Talon from Ocarina of Time in Lon Lon Ranch. One other thing. Terran is a bit of an interesting character in this game, as she tells you, the player, that she wants to leave the island someday, but that she'd like to become a seagull, describing how she would want to fly to faraway places and sing for many people. Now, what exactly do we see at the end of this game, you might be asking? Yeah, that's right. A seagull flying away into the horizon. It's pretty neat, right? Alright, we're getting off track here. Let's get back to the story. He learned from the owl that the only way to get off the island was to collect the instruments of the sirens and wake the Windfish. As he did so, various demons attacked Link to preserve their existence. Link journeyed to the top of the mountain and played the Ballad of the Windfish with the instruments and fought a being known as the Nightmare. Once Link had defeated the Nightmare and awakened the Windfish, he awoke clinging to the driftwood of his former boat, adrift on the open seas. This portion isn't stated on Hyrule Historia, but instead it comes from the Legend of Zelda official website. It states that after Link's Awakening and the Oracle's games, A Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes takes place, so we'll be going over them here very briefly. But first, let's preface what goes on before A Link Between Worlds. After Link's adventures in Holodrum and Labyrinth, the Triforce was split apart. Ganon, despite being sealed away in the darkness following his defeat at the hands of Link, obtained the Triforce of Power, which remained sealed with him. The Triforce of Courage's location is unknown by this point, but is said to be hidden in the heart of the Eternal Hero. Centuries after Ganon's defeat, the peace of Hyrule is once again shattered by the sudden appearance of a mysterious and enigmatic wizard known as Yuga. With his cruel magic, he invades Hyrule from another world, transforming the descendants of the Seven Sages into paintings. Link, a young apprentice of the blacksmith, attempts to stop Yuga in his ambitions, but Yuga succeeds in not only obtaining all of the Seven Sages, and turning them into paintings, but Princess Zelda as well. He retreats to his world, that of Low while Link chases after him, using the power of a bracelet given to him by the mysterious peddler, Ravio. Link is too late to stop Yuga. Using his magic and the power of the Seven Sages, he is able to release Ganon, along with the Triforce of Power. Yuga and Ganon are joined as one, and using this power, Yuga desires to consume both Hyrule and Lorule. Link is protected from the beast's onslaught by Hilda, the princess of Lorule and the dark counterpart of Zelda, who urges Link to rescue the Seven Sages who have been sent to the far reaches of Lorule. With Hilda holding back Yuga and guiding Link in his quest, he succeeds in rescuing the Seven Sages, and with their power, awakens the Triforce of Courage in himself. Taking the Triforce, he rushes to challenge Yuga in Lorule Castle, only to find Hilda waiting for him in the throne room. Here, she reveals the truth, that it was her who sent Yuga to obtain the Seven Sages and release the Demon King. Taking the Triforce of Wisdom from Zelda's own portrait, she explains the history of her kingdom. Lorule had originally obtained its own Triforce, but was destroyed by her ancestors long ago to stop the endless wars over its power. However, with the Triforce gone from her world, the kingdom crumbled. Monsters arose and the world turned to darkness and corruption. Upon hearing of another world with its own Triforce, she sent Yuga to obtain the keys to unlocking the Triforce of Power, and manipulated Link into obtaining the Triforce of Courage. Summoning Yuga, she demands he obtain the Triforce of Courage from Link. Yuga, using Ganon's power, unleashes his might upon the hero. Link fights valiantly, however, and defeats Yuga, upon which point Hilda demands he relinquish the Triforce of Power to her. However, Yuga disobeys his ruler, and using his magic upon her, he takes her portrait and the Triforce of Wisdom into himself, becoming stronger than ever. In a desperate final battle, Link, with the aid of Princess Zelda, finally beats Yuga. Upon his defeat, Hilda and Zelda are returned to normal, yet Hilda desires the Triforce to save her doomed kingdom. At the very last moment, Ravio appears and reveals himself to be Link's Lorulean counterpart, and once Hilda's loyal subject, and pleads with her to let Link and Zelda return to Hyrule with their Triforce. Finally relenting after seeing the senseless fighting that led to this was not what her ancestors wanted. She helps Link and Zelda return to Hyrule with the last of the bracelet's power, through the first crack to appear between the worlds in Lorule's sacred realm. Returning to their own sacred realm with the connection between worlds gone, Link and Zelda find the Triforce whole once again. It awaits for Link to make a wish upon it, and with his wish, Lorule's Triforce is restored to its former glory, and a new, brighter age dawns upon both Lorule and Hyrule. Link leaves the Kingdom of Hyrule and ventures to the Kingdom of Hytopia. There, he is recruited by the Witch Hunting Brigade to defeat the evil witch Lady Maud. This witch had cursed Princess Styla into wearing an irremovable brown jumpsuit. Link teams up with two other lookalike heroes to gather the pieces of the Ladies' Ensemble. They obtain the last piece by defeating Lady Maud. The witch's younger sister, Madame Couture, assembles the outfit. With the complete Ladies' Ensemble, Princess Styla is freed from her accursed One Piece. Following the recovery of the Triforce after A Link Between Worlds, Hyrule enters a golden era. Successive kings of Hyrule govern the land with the strength of the united Triforce. The Kingdom of Hyrule flourishes. The last such king of Hyrule, doubting his son's worthiness, hides the Triforce of Courage in the Great Palace. Upon his death, he casts a spell on Hyrule that a crest will one day appear on a young man worthy of wielding the Triforce of Courage. the king confers the secret location of the Triforce of Courage to his daughter, Princess Zelda. The Prince of Hyrule ascends to the throne, but inherits only the Triforce of Power and the Triforce of Wisdom. Abetted by a magician, the new king questions Princess Zelda on the location of the missing Triforce. When she refuses to reveal her father's secret, the enraged magician places her under a spell of eternal sleep. Filled with regret, the new king places the princess on the altar in the North Castle. He decrees that all women born into the royal family are to be named Zelda. The cursed princess becomes known as Princess Zelda the First. The repentant king governs Hyrule to the best of his ability, but without the power of the full Triforce, the kingdom falls apart and its borders recede. The Triforce of Power and the Triforce of Wisdom continue to be passed down within the royal family. The existence of the Triforce of Courage is forgotten. Many years later, an evil army led by a revived Ganon attacks Hyrule and steals the Triforce of Power. To keep the Triforce of Wisdom out of Ganon's hands, Princess Zelda, this time a descendant of Princess Zelda I, splits it in 8 pieces and hides them throughout Hyrule. The princess sends out her nursemaid Impa to find someone with the courage to defeat Ganon. Ganon imprisons Zelda and forms a search party to find Impa. A traveling Link, and possibly a descendant of the hero from the era of Light and Dark, happens upon Impa as she is accosted by Ganon's henchmen. Link drives off the evil minions and learns of Ganon's plans of invasion from Impa. He sets off to recover the 8 pieces of the Triforce of Wisdom. Having collected them from the 8 dungeons in the land, Link confronts Ganon in Death Mountain and defeats the Demon King using the Triforce of Wisdom, the magical sword, and silver arrows. Zelda declares Link the hero of Hyrule. Hyrule is beleaguered by Ganon's minions, who remain after the death of their leader. Link remains in Hyrule to help with its restoration. On his 16th birthday, 6 years after Ganon's defeat, a glowing Triforce mark appears on the back of Link's left hand. Impa guides him to North Castle and presses on the back of his hand against the sealed doorway. Inside, they find the altar of the sleeping Princess Zelda I. Impa recounts the story of Princess Zelda I. She entrusts him with 6 crystals and an ancient scroll written by the King of Hyrule who had hidden the Triforce of Courage. Link learns from reading the scroll that the crest on his hand is a result of a spell cast by the king, marking him as worthy of the hidden Triforce of Courage. The scroll indicates that the Triforce of Courage is located in the Great Palace. To undo the binding force around the Great Palace, Link must go to each of the 6 palaces in Hyrule, defeat the Guardian defending it, and set the crystals in the heads of the statue located in the palaces. Impa tells Link that by uniting the 3 pieces of the Triforce, he can undo the spell cast on the sleeping Princess Zelda and bring peace back to Hyrule. Link defeats the 6 Guardians and places the crystals to gain access to the Great Palace, where he defeats the last Guardian. In a final trial, Link defeats his own shadow to obtain the Triforce of Courage. Link returns to the North Castle. The 3 pieces of the Triforce unite before the altar. The sleeping Princess Zelda awakens, her curse broken. Peace returns to Hyrule. And with this marks the end of the Hero's Defeat timeline. That was a lot of information, and honestly, I'm getting really tired of speaking now because this was a lot. So I'm going to pass it on to my friend Private Caboose, or as you all may know him better as, Greg. So here, take it away, Greg.
Yo, surprise! It's your favorite disembodied voice from hit series like College Guide to Minecraft and College Guide to Sea of Thieves, and I think that's pretty much it. Anyway, yo, what's up? It's your dog Greg coming at you live. New Zelda drop. Here we go. Timelines and shit. Hell yeah. Let's get this started. Thanks, Prez, for letting me do this. Time to read. Several months into his search for Navi, Link becomes lost in the mysterious forest. He encounters the Skull Kid wearing Majora's mask. Skull Kid steals Link's horse, which is a horrible crime, and Link chases after him into the parallel world of Termia. The Skull Kid, corrupted by Majora's mask, aims to destroy Termia by bringing the moon down upon it. Link has only 3 days to stop the apocalypse, but he is able to return to the first day by playing the Song of Time. He ventures into the 4 outer regions of Termia, using transformative masks to free the 4 giants. On the final day, the 4 giants hold up the moon. Link thwarts Majora, the demon inhabiting the mask. The hero of time leaves Termia and continues his search for Navi, and is not again seen alive. Upon his death, he becomes the hero's spirit. Several years after the Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf is sentenced to death. The sages attempt to carry out the execution, but Ganondorf survives due to being blessed by the Triforce of Power by the gods. Instead, the sages must use the Mirror of Twilight to banish Ganondorf to the Twilight Realm, which had become inhabited by Twily, the descendants of the interlopers. Many years later, in the Twilight era, Ganon appears before Zant, a disgruntled servant of the Twily royal family. Ganon grants Zant his power, which he uses to usurp Midna, the Twilight princess. Midna flees to the Light World. Zant invades Hyrule with an army of shadow beasts who steal the light from the spirits of light, bringing Twilight to Hyrule. Princess Zelda is held captive in Hyrule Castle. In Hyrule, Midna encounters Link, a ranch hand from Ordon Village. Link had been in pursuit of Buloblins,
Many hours later,
Link had been in pursuit of Bloblins, who had kidnapped the children of the village. When entering the Twilight, he was transformed into a wolf by the power of the Triforce of Courage, which he had inherited from his ancestor, the Hero of Time. Thanks, Gramps. Together, Link and Midna restore light to Hyrule. In doing so, Link regains his original form. To defeat Zant, they gather the pieces of fused shadow, which holds the dark power of the interlopers. During their quest, Link receives sword training from the hero's spirit. Zant curses Link back into wolf form with the Shadow Crystal, and steals the completed fused shadow from Midna and injures her fatally. Link takes Midna to Princess Zelda, who pours her spirit into Midna to save her life. Link and Midna seek out the Master Sword in the sacred grove where the Temple of Time once stood. The sword dispels the sword dispels the curse on Link. Link and Midna gather the shards of the Mirror of Twilight, which Zant had broken. Link defeats the usurper in battle, and Midna takes back the fused shadow and kills Zant with it. The duo returns to Hyrule Castle, where they save Zelda from the resurrected Ganondorf. Link kills Ganondorf with the Master Sword. Midna returns to the Twilight Realm, and she shatters this Mirror of Twilight, severing the link between the two worlds. Hundreds of years after Ganondorf's death, hopefully the last one, the people of Hyrule had reconciled with Ganondorf's tribe, the Gerudo, and it seemed that for a while that peace would prevail in the land. However, a new Ganondorf was born into the Gerudo tribe who was a reincarnation of the King of Darkness that was defeated by the hero of the Chosen Gods, and he violated their taboo on the ancient pyramid. He stole the trident from the pyramid and stole the dark mirror from the Temple of Darkness. The mirror served as a prison for the tribe. The mirror served as a prison for the dark tribe that, long ago, invaded the kingdom. It had the ability to reflect the evil heart of its bearer, giving birth to demonic creatures. Ganondorf schemed to release the ancient sorcerer Vati. Come here, Vati, come hither. Ganondorf seeks to please himself. God, no. Okay, anyway. Ganondorf schemed to release the ancient sorcerer Vati from his prison within the Four Sword, and created a dark copy of Link, henceforth known as Shadowed Link, with the mirror. The clouds of darkness covering the land made Zelda uneasy, so she gathered the 6 shrine maidens to renew the seal upon Vati. At that moment, Shadow Link appeared and scattered the maidens with his power. Link drew the sword from the pedestal, splitting into 4 just as in ancient times. However, this released Vati from his prison to cause chaos. Ganon used Shadow Link to tear open rifts to the Dark World, pulling the 4 Knights of Hyrule into his sway and transforming them into big, dark Stalfos. The 4 Links journeyed throughout Hyrule to rescue the Shrine Maidens, and learned that Ganon was the mastermind behind the darkness plaguing Hyrule. They obtained the 4 jewels from the Knights and made their way to the Tower of Winds, where they battled Vahati and Ganon himself, destroying Vahati and sealing Gani inside the 4 swords forever. Ages passed, and the hero of time faded to legend. During the era without a hero, the seal of the 7 sages broke. Ganon escaped from the sacred realm and used the Triforce of Power to bring darkness to Hyrule. Who would have saw that coming? But oh no! There's no hero who appears! So King So King King D is what we're gonna fucking call him, cause that's a name. So yeah, your boy King Dap over here and his people pleaded to the gods for deliverance. The gods responded by bringing forth a deluge that would steal away all of Hyrule and Ganon with it. The gods chose those who would build a new world and commanded them to take refuge on the mountaintops, which became the islands of the new world known as the Great Sea. The Triforce of Wisdom was split in 2. One part remained with your boy King Dap beneath the waves, the other with his daughter, the princess, who ascended to the new world. The Triforce fragment passed on to her namesakes, from daughter to daughter. Beneath the waves, Hyrule remained frozen in time. Hundreds of years later, during the era of the Great Sea, Ganondorf escapes to the surface world, seeking to regain the Triforce of Wisdom. He commands the Hammerrock King to kidnap young girls with pointed ears. I'm sorry, that's a stupid plot. Anyway, in hopes of capturing Zelda, the Hammerrock King instead kidnaps Ariel, Link's sister. Link, a resident of Outset Island unrelated to the hero of time, sets out to rescue her. He is guided by the King of Red Lions, a boat set forth by the gods. Yo, I'm the King of Lions. Yo, I don't give a shit if there's one thing I've learned from years of saving this land, is that all I really need is a sword and shield in my hand. But look over there, a giant... Anyway, Link proves his worth as a hero by gathering the goddess pearls and completing the goddess's trial. A way opens to Hyrule beneath the waves. Link draws the Master Sword from the pedestal within Hyrule Castle. With the help of Tetra and her pirate crew, Link rescues his sister. However, he is unable to defeat Ganondorf. The Master Sword had lost the power to repel evil when Ganondorf killed the sages of Earth and Wind. Oh no! Link and Tetra escape Ganondorf's grasp and return to Hyrule, where your boy King D reveals himself to be the King of Red Lions. He mends the Triforce of Wisdom. Tetra carries the other piece. She awakens as Princess Zelda. Link restores the power to repel evil to the Master Sword. He gathers the shards of the Triforce of Courage to reopen a way to Hyrule. Upon returning to Hyrule, he discovers Zelda has been kidnapped by Ganondorf and taken atop Ganon's tower. When Link pursues them to the top of the tower, the full Triforce is reunited. Before Ganondorf is able to touch the Triforce and make his wish, however, your dog, Daphne, whatever, steps in and wishes for Hyrule to be washed away forever. Together, Link and Zelda defeat Ganondorf, and they return to the surface. But your dog, King D, stays behind and vanishes along with his kingdom. Yo, shout out to my homie King D, passing away with his kingdom. Above the waves, Zelda becomes Tetra once again, and Link and Tetra set sail in search of a new continent, because they got tired of this one, I guess. During the era of the Great Voyage, Link and Tetra happen upon the world of the Ocean King to investigate a rumor about disappearing ships in the area. Tetra boards a ghost ship and is taken away by it. Link falls into the ocean trying to rescue her and washes up on Mersey Island, where he meets the fairy Scylla and her so-called grandfather Oceus. Link teams up with Scylla and Steamboat Captain Lineback to find the ghost ship. He obtains clues from the Temple of the Ocean King, which he navigates using the Phantom Hourglass. Link finds the ship after rescuing the spirits of power, wisdom, and courage, also known as Leaf, Neri, and as it turns out, Scylla. On the ship, Link finds Tetra turned to stone. Oh no! Her life force had been drained by the malevolent creature named Bellum. Bellum's like Gollum's weird cousin, but he's a bell. Anyway, to defeat Bellum, Link searches the seas for the 3 pure metals to forge the Phantom Sword. Oceus reveals himself to be the Ocean King and fuses the Phantom Hourglass into the Phantom Sword. The Phantom Sword in hand, Link defeats Bellum and frees Tetra. The Ocean King regains his true form, and Link and Tetra return to their world and continue their search for a new continent. Link and Tetra's pirate crew eventually discover a new continent. Yay! Yippee! Spirit tracks spanned the land, and at the center which stood the Tower of Spirits. These were created by the Logomo to bind the Demon King Malladus to the land. Tetra christened the land New Hyrule. After over 100 years, the land of New Hyrule thrived. But 100 years later, spirit tracks begin to disappear. Oh no! Link, a royal engineer, and Princess Zelda, Tetra's descendant, headed to the Tower of Spirits to investigate but their train is derailed by Chancellor Cole and Byron. Oh no! Chancellor Cole, the advisor of the Princess Zelda, reveals himself to be a demon who aims to revive Malladus, and Byron is Cole's ally, I guess. Anyway, they separate Zelda's spirit from her body, and her body is carried off to the top of the spirit tower to be used as a vessel for Malladus. The spirit tower is fragmented into floating pieces. Oh, how adorable. Link and Princess Zelda's ghosts travel to 4 temples to restore the spirit tracks and the Tower of Spirits. They climb to the top of the tower, but are too late to stop Malladus from possessing Zelda's body. They pursue Malladus into the Dark Realm. Together they defeat Malladus and Cole using the Bow of Light and the Locomotive Sword. Zelda regains her body and peace and returns into Hyrule, whatever, yada yada yada. Their protection no longer needed, the Locomo sages return to the heavens. This marks the end of the official timeline.
The events of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom take place during an era long after the events of earlier games, which have since become myths, and take place at the end of a timeline branch. But which timeline branch? Are we talking about the heroes defeated timeline, or the heroes triumphant timelines? We really don't know, but what we do know is that this is very much up to the interpretation of the player. It is impossible to tell which myths are historical fact, and which are mere legends. The Zonai descend from sky islands far above, appearing to the people of Hyrule as though they were gods, long before the founding of Hyrule by King Rauru and Queen Sonia. The last 2 descendants of the ancient Zonai are Rauru and his sister Mineru. Sonia is a Hylian priestess born in the land of Hyrule. Sonia marries Rauru and they found the kingdom of Hyrule. They create shrines of light to seal away monsters plaguing the kingdom at the time.
What? Oh dear. Where am I? We didn't mean to startle you. I'm sorry. It's okay. My name is Sonia.
And could we ask what your name is?
I am the daughter of King Rome of Hyrule, Zelda.
What an unexpected answer. We are the king and queen who founded Hyrule, after all. Or at least we were the last time I checked.
You two founded Hyrule? And you're the king?
Princess Zelda arrives in this time from the far future upheaval and witnesses the events leading up to the Imprisoning War as well as the war itself. Ganondorf initially attempts to take the kingdom of Hyrule by force, but his army of Molduga is defeated by the sacred powers of Rauru, Sonia, and Zelda. He then pretends to ally with them and despite their precautions, successfully assassinates Queen Sonia, taking her secret stone and corrupting it, thus amplifying his power to become the Demon King. Now let's go over the Imprisoning War again, because like I said before, there are actually 2 versions of this war. In regular Zelda canon, it's actually a well-known event in the history of that part of the timeline. But here in Tears of the Kingdom, it's actually referred to as the Secret War, a war in which no one really knows what exactly happened except for those who were directly involved in it. A large war is waged by Ganondorf, the Demon King, and an army of monsters he unleashes upon the kingdom following the death of Queen Sonia. King Rauru recruits 5 ancient sages, one from each of the races of Rito, Zora, Goron, Gerudo, as well as his sister Mineru, to fight the Demon King Ganondorf. Ultimately, they cannot kill him, but Rauru manages to seal him away, but is required to sacrifice his own life to do so, bringing an end to the imprisoning war. Zelda stands on the Sky Island of the Temple of Time when the decayed Master Sword arrives in the past shortly after the upheaval. She had been told by the Deku Tree that the sword can be healed if bathed in sacred power. She swallows a secret stone, thus turning into the Light Dragon, the sword embedded in its forehead to absorb her sacred power and heal over the coming millennia. Shortly after this happens, an entity referred to as Calamity Ganon is unleashed upon the Kingdom of Hyrule time and time again over the centuries. People have speculated that it's actually not possible for Calamity Ganon to be alive at this point, because technically if we were to go back into the Tears of the Kingdom story, Ganondorf is still sealed below the castle. Now, why is this the case? Why is Calamity Ganon here even though Ganondorf isn't technically dead? Well, despite the fact that he's dormant, the malice that formed around the castle technically is another reincarnation of Ganon. It's a bit of, like, wibbly-wobbly things that make no sense, but I think the best way to make sense of it is that Ganondorf is dormant currently under the castle, but the malice that Demise promised would become the perpetual loop that happens throughout the timelines is actually another reincarnation. And the reason I say that is because after the Calamity is defeated, after Calamity Ganon is destroyed, the seal on Ganondorf himself starts to weaken, and that's what leads into the events of Tears of the Kingdom, in the present time, not in the past. "10,000 years before Breath of the Wild, the Sheikah tribe developed highly advanced technology and Hyrule flourished. The Sheikah built the Guardians and Divine Beasts in preparation for Ganon's return. When Calamity Ganon appears, the then-present reincarnations of Zelda and Link are able to seal him away with the support of the Guardians and Divine Beasts and their ancient pilots. Despite this success, the King of Hyrule becomes paranoid, fearing a possible betrayal by the Sheikah. On his orders, the Divine Beasts are buried underground in locations across Hyrule. At some point, a militant faction of the Sheikah, who are enraged at the royal family for the order to bury their technology, split off to become the Yiga clan, and swear allegiance to Ganon. With the Sheikah scattered across the land, and many of them abandoning their technology, civilization in Hyrule declines to a primitive state over the following millennia. About 9,883 years after the Calamity's defeat, a new princess is born and named Zelda in line with the tradition. Around this time, a prophecy warns of the return of Calamity Ganon. The ban on the Sheikah's technology is lifted by King Rome Bosphorus Hyrule, restoring relations with the Sheikah. Hoping to prepare in the same fashion as their ancestors, the people of Hyrule began to locate and excavate the Divine Beasts and Guardians, which they eventually managed to restore and activate. Subsequently, 4 warriors from each of the Hyrule's races were selected to pilot the Divine Beasts. Around that time, the chosen bearer of the Master Sword was found to be a Hylian knight named Link, the only one who was able to pull the sword from its resting place in the Korok Forest. The 4 pilots and Link were then dubbed Champions. A now 17-year-old Princess Zelda worked to reawaken her sealing powers while being accompanied by Link, who had been appointed as her protector. Zelda was determined to awaken her power and prayed at the springs of the goddesses in Hyrule, but she was unsuccessful. Minutes after she had finished praying at the Spring of Wisdom, the Calamity broke its seal and rose up around the castle. Immediately after, it managed to corrupt the entire Guardian army by possessing it with malice, and it turned it against Hyrule. The champions, who were with Zelda near the Spring of Wisdom at the time, then rushed to their respective Divine Beasts, hoping to still be able to defeat Calamity Ganon in time. But by that point, Ganon had already sent 4 incarnations of malice after the Divine Beasts and possessed them, killing the champions inside. With their strongest weapons lost, Hyrule was laid to ruin, and Link was fatally injured while protecting Zelda, who had awakened her sealing powers while fleeing from the Guardians, requiring him to sleep in the Shrine of Resurrection for 100 years. Princess Zelda, after returning the Master Sword to Korok Forest, then went to confront Calamity Ganon alone and managed to seal it, though this required her to become imprisoned inside of it in order to maintain the seal, as she could not completely seal Ganon away while he was undamaged by the Master Sword. 100 years later, Princess Zelda's sealing power had been weakened, and Calamity Ganon's return, as well as Link's awakening, were imminent. In response to both, the still-possessed Divine Beast began to wreak havoc around Hyrule. With the healing process complete, Link eventually awakened in the Shrine of Resurrection without his memories, and ventured forth with the Sheikah slate left for him there by Zelda. Outside of the Shrine of Resurrection, the spirit of King Rome explained to Link what had happened in the past century. At some point, Link re-obtained the Master Sword within the Korok Forest, and is ultimately guided by Zelda's voice toward the castle. Although he could have chosen to go entirely alone, Link instead takes back the Divine Beast from Ganon's influence and frees the spirits of the deceased champions, who also lend him their powers. With their help, Link is able to critically injure Calamity Ganon inside Hyrule Castle using the Master Sword, scattering malice covering him. Immediately after, the scattered malice gathers outside of the castle and transforms into Dark Beast Ganon. Zelda, still imprisoned, summons the Bow of Light, and Link uses it to weaken Ganon enough to allow Zelda to free herself and seal him away. After defeating the Calamity, Hyrule begins to slowly flourish again. Princess Zelda focuses on rebuilding the kingdom, while Link continues to support and protect her. Citizens of Hyrule have been falling ill to a substance they had begun to call gloom, emanating from beneath Hyrule Castle. Link and Princess Zelda volunteer to seek out the source of the gloom. They discover an ancient mummy dressed in Gerudo jewelry, revealed to be Ganondorf. Rauru's right arm, which had been sealing away Ganondorf, falls off. His light secret stone attached to the back of his hand falls and is picked up by Zelda. The Demon King's corpse awakens, attacks Zelda with a concentrated jet of gloom. Link jumps in the way, causing his right arm to be severely injured. Much life force drained from him and the Master Sword to shatter. Ganondorf causes Hyrule Castle to rise from the ground, causing tremors to affect the cavern. The earth cracks and Zelda falls into the depths below, narrowly missing Link's attempt to catch her. Before accidentally activating the Secret Stone's ability and time-traveling back to the founding of Hyrule. Link travels around Hyrule, awakens the new sages, and ultimately defeats Ganondorf. Ganondorf then swallows the Secret Stone originally belonging to Queen Sonia and becomes a demon dragon. Link defeats him. The spirits of Queen Sonia use her time power, and the spirit of King Rauru uses his light power, and together their sacred powers fully restore Link's right arm and transform the light dragon back into Zelda. Link and Zelda fall into the bodies of water near Maid Prairie and Lookout Landing. Minoru departs for the afterlife with Rauru and Sonia. Zelda swears to dedicate her life to providing eternal peace to Hyrule. And that's it for the entirety of the Zelda timeline, both official and kind of official, but they haven't really confirmed the placement of these games. So the only lingering question left is, where does Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom come into play? And which timeline are they in? As you all know, we went through 3 different timelines in the split from Ocarina of Time. We went through the Fallen Hero timeline, as well as the Triumphant Heroes, Child, and Adult Era timelines. So, where exactly does this all fit? Now, one theory that's being brought up by the entire fandom is whether or not the timelines are actually converging back into one point. Now, the reason people are speculating this is because Demise, back in Skyward Sword, was being referred to as the Demon King, and had a very unique appearance. Now, when we look at Tears of the Kingdom, we see almost an identical appearance by Demise, and Ganondorf being referred to as the Demon King here. Evidence that supports this theory is that some songs from Tears of the Kingdom actually feature similar motifs as songs from previous games. Some games being from the Fallen Hero timeline, and others being in completely different parts of the timeline entirely. You want to hear an example? Let's compare the Kolgara battle from Tears of the Kingdom to Dragon Roost Island from Wind Waker. Have a listen. Oh, and that's not all. You might think that this is just from the Heroes Triumphant timeline. There's even a reference from the Fallen Hero timeline. So here, take a listen to this. And that's not even all of it, because if you go down the Misko's Treasure questline in both Breath of the Wild, if you have the DLC, and in Tears of the Kingdom, just the base game, you can find relics from past games. If you go down into the depths in Tears of the Kingdom, you can find a whole bunch of relics from past games, from Twilight Princess all the way over to Link's Awakening, and these two games are in completely different timelines. So let's take a second to think about this. Back in the beginning of the timeline, Demise came out, and as soon as he was defeated, he cursed Link and Zelda with a perpetual loop of his reincarnation, cursing the future incarnations of the Hero of Courage and the Princess of Wisdom. And we've only seen Demise once before Tears of the Kingdom. When we got Tears of the Kingdom, we got someone who not only had the title of Demise himself, but also had an uncanny resemblance to the Demon King, the first Demon King. And that's not only the thing. This game takes place thousands of years after the main timeline. So pretty much anything that happened before this point is considered myth by everyone else. So if we take a second to process all of that, it could be the case that all the timelines converged into one point, considering we get all the treasures, all of the outfits and gear from past games, including weapons, because there's even a goddess sword for some reason. And the game is now resetting the whole timeline entirely, bringing in a whole new era of Zelda games for the future. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, what can we really take away from this? So, even though this timeline is ridiculously long and confusing, all we can really take out of this is that these games are connected one way or another. It doesn't matter which order they go in, because the point of it is just to have fun. Eiji Aonuma, the main developer of the game and one of the creators of the Zelda franchise, he said in an interview that he just wants players to be able to continue having fun imagining this world even after they're finished with the game. So this time, they decided that they wouldn't be making any clarifications to the timeline, and would hope that all players would come to their own interpretations of the story. So really, at the end of it, this timeline isn't meaningless. It gives us a pretty broad scope of where the games are supposed to go, and which order you're supposed to play them through. But really, it all comes down to enjoying this awesome game world, this awesome story, these epic characters, and just having fun with it. And this is it for the 3rd episode of An Open Journal. And I'd like to thank all of you for sticking around the whole hour and maybe 20 minutes that this video's gone on for. It was a lot of fun to make this video, and really, I'm tired, and just saying, I started working on this video in May. It's July 31st as I'm recording this very recording. Some of these recordings are from June, from earlier here in July. I am just about finished with this video as I'm recording this. So I'd like to thank you all again for watching, sticking around, and enjoying this series as much as I've enjoyed making it. I'd like to give a special thanks to my friend Greg, or Private Caboose, as he did an awesome job voicing and lending me, his narration skills for the whole other timeline section. So thank you to him. I'll leave his channel in the description below, and I'll put him in the end card. So if you want to enjoy some epic animation content, go check out Greg's channel, because he works hard on it. With that being said, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. There is one more thing I would like to touch on before signing off and rolling credits and whatnot. I did mention earlier in the video that I was going to talk about Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, but as I was researching, I came to the conclusion that it doesn't really have a place in this timeline. Really, what Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is, it's kind of a prequel to Breath of the Wild in the sense that it takes place beforehand, but the events that happen in it are kind of splitting it off away from Breath of the Wild. Because one of the characters, a guardian robot that travels back in time to save everyone, kind of alters the events of the past and causes them to go fork in a different direction for the future. So really, if you want to learn more about Age of Calamity, I would recommend either playing it or watching someone else's video about it. But that's pretty much what I could gather from it, which is kind of why I avoided talking about it. I know it's a bit confusing, but maybe at some other time I will talk about it. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Please feel free to leave your comments in the description in case I missed something, or in case I made a mistake. Anything like that, do not hesitate. I will read all your comments, and maybe even reply if there's a really valid point in there. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.